Okay. So we're gonna work on making some sunscreen today. I have two friends here, and they'll be asking questions. And if anybody joins this meeting, you can ask questions. For those who are on this meeting, I have you on mute. So if you want to ask a question, just pop me a chat in the chat box, and then I'll attend to that when it's time. So the sunscreen that we're making is it's an all herbal, all natural sunscreen that is based on a recipe that's in Rosemary Gladstar's Herbal Recipes for Vibrant Health. And the recipe is Rosemary's Perfect Cream, which is a face cream recipe. And I follow the recipe as far as the ratios go pretty much, except for I switch how I do the order that I do them in. I'll get to that later. So the way that I use this sunscreen is for when we're out in the sun. When we're going to be out in the sun between the hours of like 11 and 5, I'll put it on me and my kids. And then if we're going to be out during like the heat of the day, I might reapply. This sunscreen has beeswax in it, so that kind of helps to keep the skin closed and keep the oil like in the skin on the surface of the skin. But because there's no like zinc oxide in it or other chemical sunblock or some other chemical sunblock agents, I just try to make sure that if we're going to be out for long periods of time, I might reapply more than once. Especially, if we're going to be out during the hours of 1 and 3 when the sun rays are very, very direct and overhead. I might reapply during that time. But most days, like I don't have my kids outside usually during 1 and 3. I try to keep us inside because it's just, what's that?
It's nap time.
Yeah, because it's nap time and because it's just like usually those are nice hours to be inside, whether you're napping or siestaing in some other way. But if we're, especially if we're at the beach or on a boat, reapplying this sunscreen is probably going to be a good idea. Me and my family have like this like Polish farmer skin, so I feel like we tan really well. So we haven't had any burns when we use this. For people who have fairer skin, who like have a harder time getting a base tan or just go right to burn, I don't really know how this sunscreen is going to do for their skin. I haven't had any feedback. I always ask for feedback. If somebody uses this sunscreen and has fairer skin, I'd be really interested in getting feedback about how it worked for them. Another option, if you have fair skin, is to add zinc oxide to it. If I was going to do that, I would add a nano zinc oxide, which has bigger particles of zinc oxide so that it doesn't absorb into the skin. The reason why I choose not to use zinc oxide is because the zinc oxide blocks UVs, so it's a sunblock then, and the UVs are what our body needs to create vitamin D. So we know that people are vitamin D deficient. Part of that, I think, is because people are using sunblock and not sunscreen. So I want my body to be able to absorb as much sunlight as I can and to store up vitamin D for the winter. And having a base tan or using this product, which blocks the harmful UV rays, but lets in some of the UV rays, feels like it's a good way for me and my body and my kids to do that, to build up vitamin D stores. So people ask me like what the SPF of this is. I have no idea because I don't have a laboratory, which would be cool if I did. But all of the all of the, well, I don't know specifically which like constituents are giving the SPF protection. I think what I've heard is that it's the oils. I don't know if like the aloe or the water has SPF protection. I kind of think that maybe it doesn't. So what I'm using to make this, so I use coconut oil, which is a solid oil. I use aloe leaf or aloe gel. And then I use like herb infused oils. These ones are holy basil and Thai basil. I also have a Monarda infused oil, a wintergreen infused oil, lavender infused oil. I think those are what I have.
You're using olive oil as your basis?
Yep. Yep. So these are infused in olive oil. I tend to use olive oil for making herb infused oils because olive oil is very shelf stable compared to many other liquid oils. I wish that sunflower oil were more shelf stable, but it's just not.
I use a lot of grapeseed oil. Is that pretty?
I think grapeseed oil is shelf stable. I don't know why I've transitioned away from it. Why do you use it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It just seems nice.
You just do?
Yeah. I feel like olive oil gets a little sticky, tacky sometimes.
For the skin, you're using grapeseed oil? Are you doing infused oils with that?
A little bit here and there, but no, not.
Yeah.
Not to the extent you are.
Yeah. So when I'm making like, for the exception of this, like for my like winter oil that I put on my skin in the winter every day, and for like my for like lotions, I've been transitioning into like really nice skin nourishing oils. So like jojoba oil and sweet almond oil are the ones that I've been experimenting with. But yeah, for the herb infused oils, like sometimes I have them for years. So it's nice to have a very shelf stable oil. And then I'm mostly, the two main things that I'm doing with infused oils are making the sunscreen and then making salves, which have a really specific purpose and are just using small quantities. For the other skin stuff, I'm using different oils. And it's the same with coconut oil. I don't like coconut oil on my skin anymore. I like shea butter, cocoa butter, lard, and butter. Those are like, I mean, I don't like, I'll like, if I have like if I have like a wrapper from like butter that's not salted, I'll like wipe it on my skin when I'm done with it. Because the animal fats just, I mean, I'm an animal, I'm not a vegetable. So those fats just I feel like they're more nourishing for the skin. Yeah, so this recipe is a lot of oils that I don't tend to use for things that I'm nourishing my skin with. And, I think part of that too, like for me, coconut oil feels like it's a more cooling oil, which is one of the reasons I don't like to use it in the winter. My body tends to run cool and cold. But in the summertime, it can feel nice. And I have this idea, and I don't know if it's true, that like, I remember when I was younger, sunscreen smelled like coconut. And I'm thinking that like, they were, I mean, it didn't like link that they were probably coconut based sunscreens. So it seems like it's something that lends itself really well to this specific application. I don't do coconut infused oils, mostly because I don't like to heat the coconut, which is the only way that you can do an infused oil, because if you heat it, then you're like altering it a little bit. And then when you alter an oil, it's going to be more likely to go rancid. So all of these infused oils that I do, I'm just putting dried herbs, sometimes fresh, but usually dried herbs in oil and just leaving it for a while. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the herbs that I'm choosing to use. The Monarda oil is cooling, anti-inflammatory, and it's specifically good for burns. So, well, actually, yeah, for burns. So those can be sunburns, chemical burns, fire burns, or frostbite, which is also a burn. So the other thing that this is a really nice preparation for sunburn. So I use it both for sun protection, and then if somebody does get a little bit red, it's a really nice application for that because the herbs that I put in are really cooling. So the Monarda is a very cooling herb. The basil, last year I did just basil oil, but this year it's Tulsi and Thai basil. You guys should smell this. So the preparation smells like that, which smells so good. This year I want to do wintergreen too, which is also really cooling and anti-inflammatory. And then the lavender is also cooling and anti-inflammatory. I could go either way with that one. The lavender oil is not as dark. The wintergreen oil is very dark. The Thai basil oil is darker than the lavender oil. And so when you think about that color is also showing you what's happening when you put that on your skin, right? So the more dark the color is, that's going to be giving you UV protection as well. The Monarda oil is not very dark. Okay, so for the folks that joined us, I just, if you have a question, put it up in the chat box and I will get to it when the time is right. So in Rosemary's recipe, she's asking you to combine the waters, which is the aloe and water, in a measuring cup and then setting it aside. That's step one. Step two is in a double boiler, combine the oils until they melt. And then step three is pour the oils into a blender, let them cool. Step four is put the waters into the oil. And one of my friends who does this told me that she has better success when she pours the oils into the waters. So we're going to use a blender, and in Rosemary's, she gets the oil ready and then she puts it in the blender and then she pours the waters in. But my friend who makes body care products says she has better luck, and I have better luck when I put the waters in and then pour the oils in. So one thing I need help with, I forgot to talk about, is the beeswax that we're going to use. So I have a beeswax box that I'm going to have somebody shred. Thank you. The recipe calls for an ounce, half an ounce to an ounce, which is a, weighted measurement. I do have a scale here that we can use. Okay, so I am going to get started with measuring the oils, which are going to go into a double boiler. The recipe that we're using calls for 3/4 of a cup of a liquid oil. I'm going to use a combo. I think it's going to need more than that. When you make this preparation, you should not be wearing short sleeves, long sleeves and pants. You should be wearing short sleeves because you have all this oil that needs to go somewhere. It's just So I put in a 1/4 cup of the Monarda oil and a little bit more than a 1/4 cup of the basil oil, and then I'm gonna put in about 1/8 of a cup of the oh yeah, you can just switch it. 1/8 of a cup of the wintergreen oil. The wintergreen oil I make fresh. The basil oil I make dried. The Monarda oil I make dried. A little bit more wintergreen oil. And then 1/3 of the cup of coconut oil or cocoa butter. And I'm just eyeing this. I do everything just by eyeing it, which is be hard for people that need measurements, but there is a recipe and I will post it when I post this. So I have the oils in the glass jar, and I'm going to pour them into the, actually I'm going to leave them in the jar and just put them in the water bath rather than getting another thing dirty. I really don't like to wash dishes. Awesome. So they're grinding up the getting some like shaves of the beeswax shaved. You could use beeswax pearls. The smaller the beeswax is, the like more quickly it's going to integrate into the oil. Thank you. Okay, so if one of you want to help this, we could stir this a little bit and get that moving. And then measure the oils. Want to stir this one? Yeah. I think a spoon would be good enough. And then you need something to measure the oils. I think a mason jar will be good enough. So, or the water, I mean. So there's spring water here, and there's aloe here. So for the waters, the recipe for the waters is 2/3 cup distilled water. I'm using spring water. I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And then 1/3 cup of aloe vera gel. I'm using aloe vera juice. I've used both and both seem to work. She says that you can use rose water, which would be really nice for a face cream, not necessarily like a good use of resources for this one. And then 1 or 2 drops of essential oil. I don't use essential oils much because I'm too sensitive for the like strength of them, which is, this is one of the reasons why I use infused oils. And then vitamin A or E, and those again, those are for nourishing the skin. This was for a face cream recipe. So I don't use vitamins A or E in this preparation. Distilled water, so I used to make this recipe with a tea that I would make. So I would make a strong tea of like hawthorn berry, green tea, and that was to get those antioxidants out of those plants. But when I did it that way, it would mold. So doing it with infused oils allows for the oil soluble constituents to get into the oil, whereas the water soluble constituents do not come into the oil. And it's the water soluble constituents that are molding when something molds. So this doesn't mold because I don't have any water soluble constituents in there other than the aloe vera juice, which is usually made with citric acid or lemon juice to help as a preservative. Do you need a measuring thing?
You said a third of this.
A third of that and 2/3 of distilled water. So I haven't had any trouble with using spring water versus distilled water. The recipe calls for distilled water because it doesn't have stuff in it. It doesn't have minerals in it. I make this preparation with, the way that I keep this preparation in the refrigerator just because I want it to keep better, and I haven't had it mold in the refrigerator. I don't know if it would mold if it was kept out. It seems like it's safer to keep it in the fridge, but like if it's out for a couple hours or a couple days, it seems to be fine.
I have mine from last year, and it did live in the boat for probably 3 weeks. And it's in my fridge still, and it hasn't molded.
Awesome.
So,
there we go.
and we're still using it. So.
It was in the boat for 3 weeks, and it didn't mold. That's awesome. So we're gonna pour the liquid in the blender, and then once the oils are fully combined, then we'll pour them. Then we'll turn the blender on and get them to integrate here. So the in the meantime, I'm going to grind a little bit more of this just to use later. What the blender is doing is that it's emulsifying it, and I know that you can emulsify things without doing them in a blender. I haven't had good luck with emulsifying things without a blender. I'm trying to figure out how to make aioli. Have you ever made aioli? Yeah. You've got it to emulsify. Maybe I should
In a blender.
Yeah, in a blender. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to have a really good blender.
Well, I have a really good blender, but it doesn't. But you. Oh, okay.
Not. I haven't made it with mine, but in a commercial blender, I've made it.
Yeah. I don't know what I was. It's so funny. I'm like, okay, I can do sunscreen, which is emulsifying, but I can't do aioli. Maybe we should do that next. I love aioli. Basically mayonnaise with garlic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I need to stop buying mayonnaise. It's funny. Probably use mayonnaise as sunscreen.
It'd be really good for you.
You just keep the ghosts away. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I haven't thought about whether, I mean, I suppose if you put more essential oils in here, you could probably use this also as a sun lotion or a bug thing. One of my friends makes a bug oil, like a bug keep away bug oil, and she uses the oil because the oil stays on your skin longer than like a spray in water. So this preparation is going to make 2 cups of sunscreen. How many did you buy last year? Did you buy more than one?
I think I bought 2.
2, yeah.
Yeah, one for Grandma's house and one for our house.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did you use other sunscreens too, or did you just use that one?
Well, for Pete, because he's on the boat a lot, he's got his zinc oxide one that he uses.
Yeah. That makes sense.
But for the kids and me, it was just this.
Yeah, and you
maybe I
didn't
had a
even
little
use
bit
the
of
whole thing.
a little bit of Badger
Sure.
stuff
Yeah.
for the kids.
Yeah.
That were using that, but
Yeah, so it seems like the same with me. Like I think I use like a cup in a summer, and that's for me and 3 kids. Mm-hmm. And I mean, they're not with me all the time either. Yeah. So the longest session for this is waiting for the beeswax to dissolve. And I don't really know if the beeswax is necessary. I'm not really sure if you could do it without the beeswax. I do think that the beeswax kind of holds the skin closed, which means that it holds the stuff in the skin, which is nice. So just like any other sunscreen, like putting this on before you go out into the sun is a good idea. And then, yeah, reapplying. And I haven't, you know, we use this in the water and out of the water as well. It's because it's oil based. If you let it soak into your skin before you go in the water, then it should be protective when you come out too. So you could use this as like a frostbite salve as well. When you like actually have like a fire burn, using oil-based products isn't a good idea. So I use this for burns that don't burn, like don't disrupt the skin. What would be the right way to say that? That don't like go through multiple layers of skin. Sunburn, you know, like a first degree burn, but burns that go through multiple layers of skin, it's better to just use water-based products because they don't close the skin the way that oil does. You want it to be open so that it doesn't, so that it, gets, so that it drains, can make a layer of skin. Other herbs, I mean, I use these herbs because I feel like they are very rich in antioxidants, which is part of what's giving the UV protection. I think green tea, like in making a oil infused green tea, would be like another nice nice protective herb to use. I was experimenting with hawthorn berry when I was doing it with tea, but that didn't seem like it would infuse in the oil as well as the leaves. Last year, I think that I had St. John's wort in it last year, and some people, like in taking St. John's wort internally, can make them photosensitive, but I didn't have any reports about it not being helpful last year. And I'm choosing not to use it this year, mostly because I just want these really dark, antioxidant rich cooling herbs.
Almost.
Yeah, it needs to get fully melted before you look it up.
I was thinking we should have made a bigger batch, but also it takes so long to melt. If I can pause this. I'm gonna, so the oil has been like fully integrated, the oil and the beeswax. Basically, it's just beeswax melting. So now the next step is to let it cool. So I'm gonna put it in the fridge and let it cool. Okay, so this oil and beeswax has been cooling in the fridge for, I don't know, probably like 20 minutes, and it's finally cool enough. It's probably like 75 degrees. It really wants to be room temperature, otherwise it won't emulsify. So any cooler than this, and it'll be hard to get it into the blender. So I'm not going to be able to show you exactly how I'm pouring it, but I'm just going to demo it right here. So I'm going to have the blender on, And then I'm going to be pouring the oil in like a very, very small stream into the blender as it's going on high. And that the slow stream from this and the high speed blender is going to emulsify the oil and water. So emulsify meaning mixing and combining the oil and water so that it's a more uniform consistency. I just remembered that you can put lanolin in the oil, which can help to emulsify. I'm going to pause this again while I blend, and then I'll show you the finished product. So this is emulsified. It's like kind of looks like a little bit like whipped cream. It's a little bit thicker than whipped cream. The recipe is not exact, so I still have some oil left that I didn't get into this mixture, and I'll just use that as a salve. It didn't get fully emulsified. There's still a little bit of liquid in here, and I am like an imperfect medicine maker, so I don't try to get things to be exactly right. A little bit of liquid is fine. If there's a little bit of liquid that precipitates out once you put it in a jar, I'll just put my fingers in and just take out whatever comes out. And sometimes the liquid, some liquid will precipitate out in the jar, and it's totally fine. So right now I'll just put this in a jar and write a label on it, put it in the fridge, distribute it to people who need it, and then put it on when we go out in the sun. So let's see, I think that's it. Any questions? Yeah, okay, thank you. Oops, what did I do? So, no, my oily fingers aren't working on my computer.
Bravo.
Thanks.